It's the Get Published radio show. And here's your host, Gerald Everett Jones, the guy who has the answers because, well, he's made all the mistakes himself.
On today's show, we're going to explore the immensely popular fiction genres of science fiction and fantasy. Our special guest is William Anthony, author of I Am Fire and Air. And he's so famous it almost goes without mention, our redoubtable co-host Thomas Page is the author of The Hephaestus Plague, which was made into the cult movie Bug, and also the novel The Man Who Would Not Die.
Well, I'm excited about this show because I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so I should have a lot to say.
Cheyenne Cockrell, not only a sci-fi fan, but also a journalist who knows what makes a good story. Welcome to Get Published Radio, William.
Happy to be with you guys.
I'm impressed with William because he's not only a good storyteller, he does real deal research scientist. Me, I'm just a guy who gets excited about old aircraft and oddball historical facts.
Okay, to start off, I'm going to repeat something an editor said to me and see whether you guys agree. He said science fiction could be divided between two genres, stories grounded in present-day technology and stories that are wild speculation. The example he gave for plausible technology was the submarine in Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And the example of a far-out yarn was H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Well, guys, what do you think?
Well, H.G. Wells was not interested in science fiction. That's not why he wrote War of the Worlds.
Oh.
He was anti-British Empire, and he hated the way all of these small little tribal people were treated by the Western world. And he came up with this fabulous story, War of the Worlds. How would you feel if somebody with gigantic technology you can't even begin to understand comes down and invades you?
And then Orson Welles scared everybody with
and
it.
The whole world just loved the plot. The heck with the message. It was the original message story. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was one of the great...
William, who were you mad at when you wrote yours?
Oh, I don't think there was any anger at all involved. It was more fascination with...
I thought it was pretty creepy.
Yeah, it's a discussion, I suppose, of what can we do and what should we do.
Well, now, wait,
Moral
that
dilemma.
sounds like that would be a characterization you could make of a lot of science fiction.
Oh, definitely. And I don't know if there's this division that I would call... for instance, they use those dichotomies, the hard and the soft sci-fi. And
or
there's
speculative.
a lot that falls in this great spectrum, awesome spectrum of materials that you could get really intrigued by. Think about Margaret Atwood, Ray Bradbury, Philip K. Dick, Frank Herbert. We could go on and on. Michael Moorcock. Some of this stuff, I think, falls mainly under any classification you could make. But possibly we could talk about classical science fiction, like the works of, say, Edgar Rice Burroughs or L. Ron Hubbard. But that type of science fiction, in my humble opinion, has not gone away because I could always point out Pierce Brown's success in his Red Rising series, very recent classic sci-fi.
Well,
People love that stuff.
Let's back up a minute. Let me ask Cheyenne, as our token millennial, and I know you're a fan of not only historical fiction but also science fiction. Mm-hmm. What would you say the appeal is? Why is it that science fiction's got such a rabid following? What is behind the whole Comic-Con craze?
I think it really varies person to person. So it might be an escapism thing, someone just looking to get kind of out of reality for a second and think about what could be possible in future technologies. Could just be a fascination with science itself, just really interested in what we could accomplish. It could be, an H.G. Wells type thing where they really appreciate the metaphor that technology can create, like he did with, these alien invaders in the British Empire. I think, it just depends.
Well, Tom, is it oversimplified thinking to assert that science fiction is somehow preparing us for the worlds of tomorrow?
I think science fiction in some fashion and some people are trying to bring forth a narrative that is being resisted.
Well, are they priming us for the alien invasion that's really coming?
No. The science fiction.
No? You're
the
sure of
science
that?
fiction that I was
Tom talked
most
to the
affected
audience.
by was from the 50s.
Yeah.
And there was people like Murray Leinster. I did a thing about him. I love his name. His real name was Bill Jenkins, and he changed his name to Murray Leinster. How do you like that?
It's an interesting
But
choice.
this stuff was powerful because it was same basic thing as any kind of fiction. Good characters, terrific situations, very imaginative. And one of the major changes, though, came about through a combination of Ian Fleming and Michael Crichton, when all of a sudden they started putting realistic science and realistic technology into their books. I mean, Fleming was not a sci-fi writer, but Crichton was, and he had a tremendously skillful imagination. The Andromeda Strain.
Another
And
doctor.
He was a doctor, yeah, and he just spun these stories. One of my favorites was one called Prey, which I'm convinced is a kind of a comedy. I thought this had me. The
Be careful what eats you.
Is huge, suspenseful build-up, and then suddenly it resulted in a payoff that just had me on the floor. So there is a variety. I think really the appeal you have to have, like Star Wars, you have to have good characters.
Well, William, what
You'll
about
remember.
what about all this research that you do in the real world that you've only thinly disguised? And if you told us the real facts, I guess you'd have to shoot us. But how do you fit that into your books?
Well, some of the technology that I'm most interested in and what appears in the books can be construed as writing what you know about. Yes, some of that's real, and that some of the more disturbing technologies in the book actually exist.
You're freaking me out. Yeah.
I've naturally extrapolated some of the other potential and more interesting technology as well. But it's not, I would say it's a very tangible extrapolation. And that's what makes it so frightening.
Well, let's get specific here. A swarm of nanobots that, if you swallow, eat you from the inside. Okay,
Well, it doesn't actually do that. What it was intended to do is to be a portable. As we know in the novel, it's set in a contracting facility for the Department of Defense, and the original intention of that nanoparticle swarm was to invade a human body through any open orifice and restore declining muscular or nervous function to heal.
With that visual, we're going to continue this after the break. Get published is all about helping you. You get published. And these days, the way to go is self-publishing, where there are no agents or editors or big publishing houses telling you can't, or making you feel like you're not good enough. Going back in history, many famous authors were self-publishers. With his own printing press, Benjamin Franklin published Poor Richard's Almanac in 1732, long before he was a famous statesman. That's how we know Ben's sayings, such as, "Fish and visitors smell in 3 days." Seriously, if you want to change your life or change the world or both, it's a great time to get in the game. Ebooks are particularly easy. With a click, you can reach a worldwide audience. Did you know that there are more people in China who read English than those of us who use the language in all the rest of the world? So if you've got a story to tell, write that memoir or that novel that's been percolating in your head. And if you're an established professional, or if you have a job you dislike or no job at all, give us that business or technical or even political book that establishes you as an expert who deserves serious attention. Yes, it's easy to get published, but understand you'll need help if you want professional results. Editors and copy editors help you clean up your prose. Book designers make the product eye-catching. And publicists help you be heard above all that social media noise. We have those support resources on our website, getpublishedradio.com. And there we've also got a request for services form, where you can get personal attention for whatever might be keeping you from getting it done. That's why we say getpublishedradio.com is your doorway to unlimited self-expression. Hey, it's all about the First Amendment. Use it or lose it.
Welcome back as we explore science fiction and fantasy with William Anthony and Thomas Page.
All right, so we can go on and on about this stuff, but I would love to hear some of William and Tom's work.
Well, William, why don't you set the stage and give us something from I Am Fire and Air?
All right, the basic premise is that we have 4 young people ranging in age from 13 to 16, who have some sort of a special ability. In addition, they are orphans or children who will not be missed. So a contractor for the Department of Defense has exploited their abilities to create what they believe are going to be beneficial inventions for mankind. What they don't know is that they've been betrayed. They've actually contributed to the creation of these horrific weapons, advanced, terrible weapons. And I like to make, and here's a note for the science fiction writers out there, something is far more compelling and far more powerful if you can make it personal. And in this particular story, the super weapons they have created or contributed to are their own worst nemesis. So in the book, something goes wrong, accidentally killing everyone in the facility except our 4 heroes and all the super weapons that they've created, which are now set loose. So it's kind of a Theseus and the Minotaur. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly read a passage from it with some startling technology. I'll try to do this in about 3 minutes. This is another of Dr. Charles's labs, the one I work in. He took a deep breath. His mouth had gone dry. He had no idea what expression he bore or what tone of voice, but he could see that it had produced fear in Alina. You have to trust me. There is something in there that I have to kill. It fights back in a way that gives you those orphan nightmare feelings. I'm going to ask you to wait here. Absolutely not. Right. I expected that. If you had any doubt that treason was the right thing to do, it will be cleared up by what's in this lab. I need to make up for what I've inadvertently done to the world. We have to do this. It's important. Javon opened the door. Inside was a short hallway with a black diamond-plate aluminum floor and black aluminum walls, with hand-sized mirrored domes. The door closed behind them with a gentle hiss. Javon watched Alina grow curious about the mirrors and stopped to examine it. She touched and turned with a surprised expression. He knew the domes were soft and warm. Special shielding, murmured Javon. Alina merely nodded. She pointed to a television camera that hung from an odd bracket halfway down the hallway. Facial recognition, Javon explained. But I assume everyone in security is dead, so no one will stop us from going in. At the end of the hallway was another black door covered in mirrored domes. It had a black palm reader with a red dot. Alina easily read the sign above the door. Ultra Cryptotelesthesionics. In Greek, it means something like mysterious distant sensations. I just call it the crypt. They paused before the door. Javon set the backpack on the floor in front of the door and drew a quick, deep breath of oxygen. He extracted a hammer and poised himself, ready to strike. Javon gave her one last glance. Alina, the DOD will put us to death for opening this door in your presence. Alina reached into the backpack and extracted a heavy adjustable wrench. She gave it a couple of test strikes in her open palm to assure its weight and power, then set her jaw. Look how afraid I am, Colossi, she said sarcastically. Javon took a deep breath. Get ready.
Amazing, amazing. And, of course, it was Amazing Stories, was the name of the science fiction magazine way back in the day. Thank you, William. Okay, Tom, let's have some of The Man Who Would Not Die.
The story is a love story, basically, between a woman and a man who has died on a machine that is so advanced it keeps bringing him back. And during his dead periods, he's out there walking around looking like anybody else. She doesn't realize he's dead. She thinks he's just stood her up or something. And it's the history of the machine. They don't know how to fix it. It was designed to help patients in hospitals in comas and severe brain damage. And it works a little too well. So I'm trying to... The guy is describing the testing of it. A little old lady went in who had a stroke. The machine saved her. But basically, he was trying to bring her out of her coma. Nobody knew if that were possible, but her brain waves continued in the theta state. She was unconscious but functioning. Then we noticed an overall improvement, muscle tone, blood levels, the sheer technical wizardry, the magnificence of what this machine could do dawned upon the silent doctors. On the 12th day, The machine informed them Mrs. Cody's eyes were open. Brainwaves reveal her to be awake. The machine printed out careful instructions about the sequence in which the heart, lung, helmet, and suction systems were to be removed. Now she sat before the doctors, weak, brave, happy, when by all rights she should be 6 feet underground. Asked how she felt that devastating after that stroke, she replied, "I feel good as anyone who has walked with Jesus and knows that there is life after death." Her remarks embarrassed everybody. Apparently, Mrs. Cody had experienced a life-after-life phenomenon while in the capsule. She told the doctors after the attack, "I could see myself in the machine. I knew everything that was happening to me. When my heart stopped, I felt myself going down a long tunnel. I could hear everything the doctors were saying about me." One of the physicians interjected 12 days later, after she regained consciousness, she quoted some of our remarks back to us. The fascinated doctors heard the little old lady describe how she felt herself flying over the city like a bird and looking down the little house where she had lived. Bickle informed the doctors the LS system was being shipped out to 3 different locales, picked for the demographics, to be further tested in the day-to-day mode. If the tests were successful, the machine would be on the market within the year. It wasn't. Within 3 months, Stendhal Holmes cryptically announced the LS system was discontinued. The technology utilized in it would be transferred to other medical equipment. A terse Bickle explained with no details. The device has not lived up to the expectation of its designers. Another medical miracle had fizzled. Our hero was a guy he was in love with this woman. He met her. I'm writing a script on it, and it's going to be a little different.
Well, science gone wrong. That does seem to be a recurring theme. And of course, Frankenstein didn't work out quite the way that they thought.
Well, the machine brain scanned her right down to the neutron.
Well, we've heard a bit from William on technology that might eat us alive, and we've heard a bit from Tom on technology that might keep us alive even when we don't want to be.
Get Published Radio will be right back after this message.
In all the history of the world, with today's technology, it's never been easier to get published, to self-publish your printed book, ebook, audiobook, even multimedia ebook, and not just novels and memoirs, or how-to books and histories, although if that's what you've got, let's have it. But also poetry, spoken word, graphic novel, cartoons, children's picture book, interactive video, games, virtual reality, and imaginative mashups of all this stuff. Get into the game. Along the way, you'll no doubt need some professional help from an editor, a book designer, a publicist. But isn't the investment in yourself worth it? How about you take the money you'd spend on your next vacation and get famous instead? GetPublishedRadio.com. That's our support website where we've got links to all the resources you'll need. And don't forget that request for services form if you crave some personal attention. That's GetPublishedRadio.com. Hey, it's all about the First Amendment. You can use it or lose it.
Runke Productions, the audio magicians, can take your radio shows, podcasts, audiobooks, and ads from the streets of New York to the outer reaches of the galaxy.
I think we need more echo at the end of that.
Look, visit us at runkeeproductions.com.
I still think we need more cowbell.
Welcome back to Get Published Radio. Let's rejoin Gerald, Cheyenne, and Tom as they discuss sci-fi and fantasy fiction.
Well, guys, can science fiction save the world? Or are we just going to trash this planet and move on to the next? Is it like what we talked about a little bit at the beginning? Are we being conditioned for the last few decades with stories about aliens just to prepare us for what's going to happen?
Generally, sad to say, I don't think science fiction is a very good predictor of future stuff. It picks off of things that are happening in the present, but as far as like space travel and some of the predictions that are made, I'm not sure that it's all that accurate. I think real science is much more exciting than science fiction. But there are exceptions to the rule.
Is that like what we say about historical fiction, that it's really all about today?
It's possible, but I don't know. That's a good question. I could be.
Well, I mean, you could say all literature is about.
I think it's about imagination. It's about some guy sees something that developed in science and has an idea for a ridiculous story. I think I think the movie Them had a huge impact that was very quiet on my generation, because that was really about the dangers of radiation affecting life. And that movie came out just at the exact right time for the Environmental Protection Agency and all these movements that came in. I
guess we're going to need another movie just like that.
I think that's a great example of how science fiction kind of works. It takes these concepts that we have in our modern society and then creates kind of a hyperbole version and over-exaggerated so that it really gets the point across.
I guess I'm of the opposite opinion here. I feel that science fiction has already saved the world. We would not have a lot of the fundamental technology we currently have without science fiction. I mean, you talked earlier about Jules Verne and his submarine. That is a very common thing now, both for research. We've even got submarines that don't require humans. They are artificially intelligent. They do their work. They give us information. They change the world.
Well, we were talking about the roots of science fiction, Frankenstein going back even earlier. But, it occurs to me, from what you just said, it was Leonardo da Vinci basically drawing helicopters.
Yeah.
I agree. In fact, a lot of experts say that one of the most interesting and fundamental early works was by Johannes Kepler. He wrote a novel called Somnium, which a lot of experts recognize as the first truly sci-fi novel. But in my opinion, there's a lot of stuff that goes back even further. We can go back to maybe 500 CE in some of the Hindu works, most notably the Ramayanam, which has in it these machines that travel into outer space and under the ocean, and they have weapons that can destroy entire cities. To me, that's probably at the very beginning of science fiction.
I read that Frankenstein, Mary Shelley was inspired for telling the story at night, but she was inspired by reading that this Italian had discovered the human body is full of electricity, the nerves, the brain, and that really got her excited, and she just applied that to Frankenstein.
And she had no...
So when certain scientific breakthroughs occur, people get kind of excited.
But see, she had no wall socket to stick her finger in,
No, but she. Nervous system, electricity. Wow.
Well, Tom is actually an authority on Arthur Koestler, who wrote The Sleepwalkers, and The Sleepwalkers includes, a whole chapter on Kepler. And the thing that was stunning about him was, Kepler believed in the music of the spheres, all the spiritual orbs within orbs, and angels were the movers, and so he wrote voluminously about all those theories, and it was Sir Isaac Newton who came along and found three laws in Kepler, and that's all Kepler is really known for, the elliptical orbits of the planets, which is a basis of celestial navigation. It's all rock-hard science, but it was three crumbs that he picked out of this huge cake.
And he was casting horoscopes all over the place for a living.
Well, and then Newton himself was written volumes on spirituality and a lot of stuff that nobody remembers or knows.
Yeah. He was very much interested in alchemy at one point.
Who wasn't?
Yeah. I still am. Yeah. I got a lot of metal.
But Cheyenne, from the standpoint of somebody who's grounded in facts, how do you square that?
I mean, it's not hard for me to get lost in a sci-fi kind of non-reality thing. Maybe it's just because I do have a very creative side to me that's able to let me just kind of indulge. Part of it is because it is a way of sort of learning how to cope with new technologies and understanding the consequences those can bring, which I think is extremely important nowadays.
Well, that whole thing about learning to think out of the box, I think if you have digested this kind of literature, if you have warmed to it, then way out thinking is not maybe so way out. We'll catch up with you next week. And that's our show. Get Published is all about self-publishing and self-expression, and that getting published and the ease of getting published these days is really all about exercising the First Amendment in this free society of ours. What we need these days are more ideas. Even though we're deluged with information, we need more good ideas. And we need debate about those ideas. Book-length debate, not just snippets that are posted on social media, not just selfies and cute pictures of your pets, the things that you really think. And remember, because in self-publishing there are no gatekeepers out there, that is the good news and that is the bad news. So hire some good help. Perhaps you found that here. You may find it on the website, whatever you're looking for, whether it's an editor or a book designer or somebody to help you promote. But hire good help, get good advice, and by all means, please get published.
The Get Published radio show with Gerald Everett Jones is produced by Runkey Productions. Our producer is Lori Marple and your announcer is Bill Navarro. Music by Jason Shaw. You'll find links to support services on our website, getpublishеdradio.com. So whether you're an author, a publisher, or a self-promoter, get help at getpublishedradio.com. And thanks for listening.